We have had all 10 teams reveal their 2024 liveries and cars, so let's finally do a bit of ranking of the liveries that the teams will be sporting in the 2024 Formula 1 season. We have some categories here. We have love it, we have like it, we have it's okay, we have it's not for me, we have I'm reluctant to call this a livery, and then we have a category that there's no need to debate why it's there. Of course it's the same as last year, but at least it's painted. Let's get into ranking some liveries. We're going to do this in the order in which we saw the liveries. So we're going to start off with the McLaren. And honestly, it's a McLaren car. It's it's orange, or well, papaya as the McLaren people will say. And it's black, or carbon. And as usual with McLaren, there is 5 million freaking sponsors on there. You gotta give Zach Brown credit where it's due. He's very good at getting sponsors. I like that they've got rid of the blue at long freaking last. I mean, the blue just didn't really look right with it, you know, it looked a little bit off. I don't know if that's a good way of putting it. In terms of the 2023 car, certain angles look better than others. Like this angle of the car, from looking at it from the rear on a diagonal, not so much of a fan of that angle. Side on is okay. Some angles are okay. Like looking at it from like a front on perspective, I love it from that angle. From this kind of side on diagonal view, it's alright. Am I a massive fan of all the exposed carbon? I mean, no. Honestly, I'm gonna get into the amount of exposed carbon on some of these cars later on in the video, quite frankly. It's about weight saving though. McLaren are no different. Frankly, they have about as much exposed carbon as they did last year. So, but hey, it's an okay livery, and that's exactly where this livery is going to be being placed in my ranking. It's okay. Quite frankly, if the black carbon was actually painted black, I would put it up into I like it, because I would like it. But that kind of just, the fact that it's just exposed carbon and not actual painted black, it just kind of knocks it down for me. Example here, Pato awards the car over an Indy car this year. Painted black and papaya. Looks quite good. While we're on the topic of McLaren cars, Alexander Rossi's car. Holy shit, that's good. Next up we have Haas. And this is where I'm reluctant to call it a livery category comes into play. Because look, I'm gonna get the good out of the way first. From a front on angle, looking at it dead on, it looks good, you know, it looks good. Apart from that, the side-on angle is just, no. It's so much exposed carbon, you know? There's like some red, they got a bit of red on the front wing, some red on the rear wing, they have some white stripes going along it, there's a bit more white around about the cockpit. But apart from that, it's just exposed carbon. I'm reluctant to call it looks unfinished. And quite frankly, that's not the last time I'll be saying that in this video. It looks like the livery designer started working on it, then got pulled away to something else, and then the people actually responsible for putting the livery onto the car took it before he or she could get back to finishing it, you know? It looks unfinished. It looks like a bit of a downgrade from last year's car, you know? Hence why it's going in. The Haas was the number one reason why I decided to create that. I'm reluctant to call this a livery category, but I am reluctant to call it a livery. What is a livery though is the Williams. Now, the Williams car. Personally, I'm not the biggest fan of the livery, if I'm being perfectly honest, but it's mostly painted. It's mostly painted. That is amazing. I'm gonna get what I really like about this livery out of the way first. I love that they kept the Duracell airbox. I like that they've still got, from what I can see, those Duracell bits on the halo as well, and I like those stripes of white and red running along the front nose of it. I really like those details, but apart from that, honestly, it's the shades of blue that's kind of doing it for me. I'm just not a massive fan of the shades of blue, honestly. But it's fully painted. Williams are not scared of paint. But again, I'm going to get into the whole carbon thing a bit later in the video, honestly. But the Williams livery, like, look, it's not that bad, but personally, it's not for me. It's actually painted, love that. Duracell airbox, love that. The white and red stripes around, like, the front nose, love that. But just personally, it's not for me. You know, it's mainly the blues that are doing it for me. When it comes to the blues on a livery, I'm a little bit picky about what shades I like, and that doesn't fall into the category of the shades I like. Now, Sauber, aka Green Highlighter F1 team, aka they're in the shit legally F1 team. Honestly, for this one, I'm kind of tossing up between I'm reluctant to call it a livery and not for me. First of all, I'm just going to say it now, the green is very much going to stand out. The green will 100% stand out. You will be able to make out that car between all the other carbon cars and see, oh yeah, that's the Sauber right there. That car there, that is a Sauber right there. You can see it clear as day with the bright green. But like, while the green is going to stand out, again, it's a case of I'm a little bit reluctant to call it a livery because it's just because it is so much exposed carbon on the car. Again, it looks unfinished is the thing. I will say, I'm just noticing this now, I do kind of like the wheel covers. I'll say that here and now. I love the wheel covers. They look quite nice. And that bit on the side, a little bit weird, that just like weird squiggly line down it. You know what this looks like? It looks like the kind of livery you'd have in season 1 of My Team when you're doing a My Team career mode on the F1 games and you're using the in-game liveries before you finally take to Photoshop in season 2 and beyond to make something that's actually good, you know? And knowing the F1 game, this livery would probably be behind a podium pass. But while I like the wheel covers and the green definitely stands out, personally it's just, again, I'm reluctant to call it a livery. Because of the amount of exposed carbon, it's not, can you really call it a livery? You can't really. If it wasn't in this category, it would be a not for me, you know? It would probably be, honestly, the Haas, if it wasn't in this category, it would probably be in it's okay. But again, I have this category for a reason, so I'm gonna use it. Alpine now. Mamma mia, Alpine. What the bloody hell is this? Before any smart arses in the comments decide to say, well, it's clearly an F1 car. It's the A524. Thank you, Sherlock Holmes. I'm so glad you pointed that out. I truly had no idea. I don't know what the Alpine livery designer was thinking, but holy shit. What is going on here? Honestly, I don't even have the words. It's been a day since this car was unleashed as I'm recording this part of the video. It's a day after this was released and I still have no words. I still have absolutely no words. I suppose the kind of coloring on the back, the kind of way it like pixelates into it at the back with the Alpine is kind of cool. The wheel covers are kind of cool, but apart from that, oh my god, this is gopping. It's actually gopping. Both the pink and the blue, which the pink version, the special pink version, which they're going to be running at some races this year, BWT might be a little bit pissed that there's not much pink there. It's the exact same as the blue, but the blue is pink. It's not even really the pink version, it's still a lot of carbon just with the blue replaced with pink version. Again, I'm utilizing the category of I'm reluctant to call this a livery for both of them. Because it just, again, it looks unfinished. It does. And quite frankly, if these two were not in this category, I would probably have a whole new category for them called something along the lines of what the bloody hell is this? And you know, looking at this F1 livery, it becomes clear why they did the WEC launch at the exact same time. Because the WEC car looks bloody lovely. The blue, the way it pixelates back. I said I kind of like the pixelation on the F1 livery. I still like it here. The rear lights in the shape of the Alpine A. Oh, that is amazing. But I'm sticking this on here just so we can have a car in here that's amazing. I love it. I love the Alpine WEC car. It's truly beautiful. Alright, now let's get on to some liveries that I actually like. First up, the ToroRosso, or V-Carb RB. I'm gonna call him ToroRosso because this looks like a ToroRosso. And honestly, I like it. I do really, really like this livery. It is a good ToroRosso throwback. And also, it's painted. They're not allergic to paint, which is very, very good. It looks really clean. It's a nice shiny livery as well, or at least it looks like it is. I hope it is like shiny on like the finished product as well. Like on track, it's shiny as well. I love shiny liveries. I love glossy liveries and that. It looks really good. Like as AlphaTauri, they had some great liveries, but this, now they're RB or whatever the hell people want to call them, then it still looks really, really good. The blue, you have the white got around the place, you have the stripes of red with the white. It looks really, really good. I really like it. There's only one thing stopping it from being an absolute banger for me, and that's the shade of blue. I've said it before, I'm a little bit picky on shades of blue on liveries, and I don't particularly like this shade of blue, but I really, really like the livery. And honestly, this livery is going right up into like it, because I do really, really like this livery. It looks amazing. And so they've called it the RB1, not to be confused with the RB1 from 2005, but I suggest we just say F it and call it the STR15. Anyway, moving on. Aston Martin are up next. It quite frankly looks exactly like it did last year, just with a little bit of extra carbon fiber around the place. I can't help but feel like the shade of green is different to last year as well. I'm not the only one who's seen it, but like the shade of green this year, it looks a bit different. Like last year's car, it looked kind of more of like a seaweedy green. This year it looks more kind of like a green, if you know what I mean. It looks a little bit, it kind of reminds me a bit more of the green that was on the 2022 car. But no, it quite frankly looks more or less exactly like it did last year, I'm gonna be honest. And honestly, it's not that in a bad livery. From the top down view, not so much of a fan. It's really just like that big, like kind of strips of carbon on the kind of the divot, I'll call them the divots in the side pod. Not such a fan on the top down view, mainly because of that carbon fiber. But other than that, I quite like this livery, you know. It looks pretty much the same as it did last year. But that's fine. And it's a good livery though. So if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Now, Ferrari. This is a beauty! That is words that literally no one will be surprised to hear given, well, Ferrari fan. But you cannot go wrong with a red car. Ferrari have absolutely got it right. They've still got a little bit of carbon fiber going around the place, a little bit on the rear wing, a little bit on the front wing, and a little bit on the side pods and the divots there, but overall I feel like there's less carbon fiber on the car than there was last year. Because of course last year then had the kind of the shark fin on top of the engine cover, that was all in carbon, and then there was that weird kind of section on the side pod with the Seva logo. That was a little bit of a weird choice, but I didn't mind it. But this year I feel like there's less carbon fiber. Oh, and there's a bit of carbon on the halo as well on the top of it. But this looks amazing. I feel like the shade of red is a little bit different to what it was last year. But honestly, it looks really, really good. The white and the yellow stripes kind of going along it in places, and then kind of just swooping along the side pod. Kind of those like kind of touches, I suppose, and kind of nods to the Monza livery from last year, to the Vegas livery from last year, and then 3, the hypercar program. And also, you know, they've had a lot of white on their liveries in the past. They had white and yellow, white and red, sorry, was the thing for a while. But I love this. I absolutely love this. No one will be surprised to hear me say that I absolutely love the Ferrari livery. But look, you cannot go wrong with a red car. And the wheel covers, they are amazing. I love them. I love to see, it's nice to see them actually doing something with the wheel covers, because they've never done anything with them before. They've just kind of left them, but they've finally done something with them and it looks really good. And Ferrari did not go wrong. It is absolutely amazing. I love it. And honestly, the same thing goes for the Mercedes livery, actually. Now, I feel like I might be slightly contradicting myself, given that I've made it kind of clear in this video that I'm not a massive fan of this whole big areas of exposed carbon, but Mercedes have done it absolutely right. I love this livery. I love that they brought the silver back, the way that it fades back into the painted black with the stars on the back on the black. Of course, you still got the red star for Niki Lauda there on the black as well. And of course, you got that kind of the strip of blue, then below that is just exposed carbon. It looks really good. And I feel like they've done the kind of having a lot of exposed carbon better than they did last year, where it's just like that hard cut from black paint to black exposed carbon. Wasn't a fan of their livery last year, but this year it looks absolutely beautiful. I love it so much. I love fades in liveries. I love a livery that fades from one color to another, and they've done it here with the silver at the front, the black fading into the black at the back. It's beautiful. This livery is absolutely amazing. It is joining Ferrari and the Alpine hypercar up in love it. I've seen a lot of people say online that this livery kind of really puts me in mind of like the old McLaren West liveries. And honestly, I'd have to agree. They look really similar. The McLaren West livery is absolutely beautiful. And this livery does kind of look a bit like it. And finally, Red Bull, which it looks exactly the same as it did last year, quite frankly. It hasn't changed. The livery leaked, actually. The car leaked, actually, because they made the same mistake as Alpine made last year, where they did the shakedown before the launch, and then inevitably someone took a fucking picture and it leaked online. Then the fact that Max Verstappen literally said, like, mate, it's the same livery, it's gonna be the same, it looks the same as it did last year. He was not wrong. Thank you, Max, for being honest and just keeping everyone's expectations low that it's not gonna change. Now, carbon fiber. You know, the first thought I have on the teams with a lot of exposed carbon, it does have me a little bit worried for some of them. And I'm thinking in particular Alpine, Sauber, and Haas. McLaren, I think, honestly, there's so many freaking sponsor logos on their car that the weight kind of cancels itself out, really. So they can just be put to the side. They're fine. They're not really involved in this rant, this first point of my rant. But my first point of the rant is, it has me a little bit worried about Alpine, Sauber, and Haas. Because if they're resorting to stripping back this much paint from their goddamn livery, like, we know why the team strip back paint and leave bits exposed carbon, it's for weight saving. But if they're resorting to stripping back this much paint, I'm a little bit worried about them. I'm going to be brutally honest. I mean, we know Haas are going to be crap anyway, but their team principal has said as much. Alpine, my hopes are not high, and they're not high for Sauber either. But overall, this trend of large areas of exposed carbon, it needs to die. This trend needs to go. There's nothing wrong with having some exposed carbon on the car. In areas, it can look quite good. You know, I always quite like a full, like, plain carbon front wing and rear wing. In parts of the car, it can look good in small doses, and if done properly, it can look really good. Take Mercedes, for example. But in most cases this year, it does not look good. Honestly, I really hope F1 does something about this for like 2026 or the future. Or else we are going to get to a time when we're just going to have 18 full carbon fiber cars running around, and then the only painted cars will be the Ferraris because they refuse to run a car that isn't fucking red. Thankfully. I mean, hopefully they'll be reducing the weight for 2026. They should be, I think. Please correct me if I'm wrong on that. I'm just trying to remember off the top of my head, but I cannot quite remember. I believe the weight for 2026 is being lowered? Is it? I don't know. Anyway, if it's lowering the weight or allocating, like, you have to have X amount of the car painted. You need to have, like, say 80% of the car must be painted or 90% of the car must be painted. And if you want to do large areas of black on the car, fucking paint it. You know? I mean, in areas it's not that bad having exposed carbon. In areas it can look good. But if it's like a large area, like what Haas have, like what Sauber have, like what Alpine have, like what McLaren have, frickin' paint it, goddammit. The FIA and F1 need to step in and do something and say something like, no, you need to have X amount of the car painted, or else we are going to get into an area where there's just a bunch of carbon fiber cars running around, and then the Ferraris, which will be painted, because unless naturally red carbon fiber becomes a thing. Anyway, that's my ranking of the 2024 Formula 1 liveries. If I was ranking it without the extra categories, then the order would be as such. It will be Alpine coming up in 10th place, followed by Sauber in 9th, and then Williams coming up in 8th place. Haas would be in 7th, followed by McLaren in 6th, and then Red Bull would be the first car in the top 5. 4th place would be Aston Martin. 3rd would be ToroRosso, the first podium step. Then on the second step of the podium would be Mercedes, and Ferrari would be taking the top step of the podium in 1st. What's your rankings of the liveries? Which ones are your favourites? Which ones do you not quite like? And what do you think about this whole massive areas of exposed carbon trend that there seems to be? And while we're at it, what do you think of the Alpine hypercar? Because it looks very, very good. Honestly, give me your thoughts in the comments below. Drop a like if you enjoyed the video. Subscribe if you're new around here. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.